to the New Orleans Jazz Museum. On behalf of New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park, we're so delighted to have this partnership with the New Orleans Jazz Museum to provide free concerts and programs for you throughout the week. Every Thursday, we have our piano hour, and then we also have our special programs that feature our local community leaders and influencers. So we have the Talkin' Jazz with Fred Kasten. Fred Kasten has been a radio show host for WWNO, spreading New Orleans culture and history, and he brings in special guests to feature. This is a program that is unique to our park. And it also goes along with our mission, which is to instill a public appreciation for the history, culture, and music of New Orleans. And as well, we are hoping to be a global leader in promoting and protecting this rich American art form, which is jazz. So without further ado, Fred Kasten is going to take it away and introduce our very, very, very special guest. So sit back, relax, silence your cell phones, and enjoy the program.
Thank you very much, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here this afternoon for this next Talkin' Jazz with Fred Kasten in concert. Going to feature today two of the most accomplished and versatile musicians and composers I know. They've combined forces, collaborated recently on a gorgeous new CD of Standardized. And they're going to play some of those things for you today, and we'll talk to them about their lives in music and also making this terrific new record with a beautiful duo. So please welcome on clarinet and saxophones. He is a clarinetist, a saxophonist, a trombonist, a vocalist, and a composer, Mr. James Evans. And at the piano for us today, award-winning producer, pianist, composer, arranger, Mr. Lawrence Siebert, ladies and gentlemen. The James Evans, Lawrence Siebert Standardized Duo. Gentlemen, take it away.
So this is our CD. If you notice, the cover's fuzzy, which is the way we are.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful work from James Evans, Lawrence Siebert. Gentlemen, let's have one more before we talk for a minute. Yeah. Blue Monk with a little twist of Gershwin, ladies and gentlemen, from Lawrence Siebert at the piano. That's James Evans with the beautiful clarinet work. And before that, There Is No Greater Love from Standardized. Highly recommended and available right here, ladies and gentlemen. I should let you know that these two guys will be playing Sunday at Snug Harbor. And 2 sets there, 7:30, 9:30. They'll be playing a lot of music and more that you hear here this afternoon. James, you've been here in New Orleans a little bit over a decade now, but you're not from here originally. Where'd you grow up?
No, I grew up in North Wales. So, yeah, I was
Could we
born
spell
and
or even
raised,
pronounce
the
the
Ar-
city you're from?
yeah, the Isle of Anglesey. It was where I'm from. I mean, city would, be overdoing it. It was really in the middle of nowhere. But it's a beautiful place, you know. It's,
Oh, yeah,
it's
the-
by the sea and there's mountains just across the water.
Spectacular landscapes
So,
in Wales.
yeah.
Well, what about music? Was that something you were drawn to early in life?
Yeah, so I had piano lessons, but Mrs. Griffiths would hit my fingers with a ruler when I played wrong notes. So that didn't end well. But yeah, then I saw someone play an oboe, and I wanted to play the oboe. So I went and had some lessons. And then my best buddy joined the town band. And the town band in the town of Beaumaris, which is like the nearest, this is like a Norman town. It's an old town. But they have a brass band, which is, I don't know who here is familiar with British brass bands, but yeah, you know, it's like a 25, 30-piece group with just brass, tubas, tenor horns, cornets, and trombones. And my buddy was on trombone. I took up the trombone. So I did that. Yeah, so that was kind of getting into that. And then at a certain point, my clarinet teacher just was noticing that I was having a lot of trouble sticking to the music, partly because I wasn't very good at reading it, and partly because I was improving it. And so he said, like he just literally put on a play-along CD. It was Jamie Ebersol play-along. Here's That Rainy Day was the song.
Oh, yeah.
He said, now improvise. Okay. And I just sort of did. So that seems natural enough.
Now, what instrument were you playing?
That was on a clarinet. Yeah.
clarinet.
I mean, I'm sure it was abysmal, but it didn't, you know, it was, yeah, it felt, I think I'd always messed around, you know, more than I'd wanted to really read what was in front of me. So.
When you started oboe, did you like that?
Oh, he actually dissuaded me not to. He said, don't play the oboe. It's like a lifetime of, you know, hypertension and reed problems.
Plus, what it would do to your parents and
yeah.
siblings at
Yeah.
home, as you learned.
Yeah. So he steered me onto the clarinet, which is just as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a saxophone came along a little after that, you know, once I was playing jazz.
So clarinet for how old were you when you picked that up? Clarinet.
About 13. Yeah, but I was lazy. I didn't practice hardly at all.
Were you doing anything with music outside of what you do at school at that point?
Well, the main thing was the town band. That was the
The
most
main thing.
performing, you know. But then at about 15, I met some people who played jazz, and it's sort of in bars, you know. I was drinking in bars and playing jazz when I was 15. Wouldn't advise that, but that's what was happening. And and it sort of went from there. And then eventually, eventually I realized I would actually have to do some work and really learn the instrument. And that finally happened. After a brief stint in trying to be an army musician when I was 17.
What kind of things were you listening to out other than music you were playing in the band?
Well, I think up to the point where I really started to be aware of jazz, I was mostly, I think, listening to a lot of classical music, actually. Just like what my parents had in their record collection, you know. But in amongst that was the records they'd bought in the British trad boom, which, again, that was like the early 60s, just before the Beatles. As soon as the Beatles hit, it was dead. But just before that, it was huge. And they had all these records, Kenny Ball, Ackerbilt, Chris Barber. And, I immediately took to them. I mean, this is second-hand information. Obviously, this is a Welsh boy listening to British bands playing
New Orleans
American,
music.
New Orleans music. But nonetheless, it was enough to get me excited to the point where I took in a 45 to school, and it was like bring in a 45 day, and put this on, and everyone else, I put this on, and everyone looked at me like I'd lost my mind because I was, listening to this music they'd never heard, because it was their parents' generation, and who listens to their parents' music, But it touched me, I guess. I immediately thought, wow, this is different.
Was the sort of a trad fad in UK around the same time as it was second coming of it in the US? Was it the 50s, late 40s, 50s?
Well, it happened through the 50s. So it grew through, it kind of grew from the very late 40s through to, and then by about 1960, I think, around that time, it suddenly got over the threshold into being not just like beatniks in clubs,
Right.
but pop music that was on every Saturday night. Variety TV show would have a jazz band in, that would be part of the schedule, So yeah, it was huge, and I think then what went on to happen is I ended up playing for my parents' generation a lot, because that was what they were still into, and the clubs persevered even after the trad boom died. There was still clubs. It's just people went from being on TV on Saturday night to playing in a pub for £5 and a pint. It was tough.
You started touring some in your 17, 18, somewhere in there. Did you play? When were you in Phil Mason's band?
So that was my first pro band. So I went back to school to do music, and I was in college in Leeds, in the
Leeds
north of England.
Conservatoire.
Yeah, which was the only jazz course at that time. Is quite a few now, but. And I thought, if I go there, I've got 3 years. It was paid for at that time. That doesn't happen now, but so I thought, I've got 3 years. I can practice, and I'll meet some people. And one of the people I met had been playing with Phil Mason. So by the time I left, I kind of came back from a tour of Germany the day before my final performance. A little bit the worse for traveling and fun, winged it. But it was a jazz course, so what are you gonna do? So by the time I left college, I was touring, and they really toured. I mean, that was grueling, on the road, overnight, everywhere. Like I'd leave my house on a Thursday lunchtime, and I'd get back Monday afternoon, and I would have seen maybe one bed sometimes. The rest of the time, because I'd just go there, and we'd go overnight to Hamburg, say, and then we'd get up first thing in the morning the next day and go do another evening gig, and then go overnight and do a Sunday lunchtime, and then drive right through till Monday. Yeah, it was awful, but the music was great, and it was great playing to big audiences in Germany. Huge scene for touring bands in Germany at that time. Yeah.
Were you playing both clarinet and saxophone?
Yeah, I was
in
playing
that group?
tenor very much on the side at that point. Yeah, but that's what.
Well, I know you've written a lot of different kinds of things, composed a lot of different kind of things. Were you starting to do that as a young player, or did that come later?
No, I started writing really early on. When I was probably just starting playing the clarinet, I wrote a piece. It's weird. I don't know what made me think that's what I should do, but it just occurred to me that I'd try. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I did a mistake a lot of people do, I think, where you write the first part, and then you write the second part, and then you write the third part, rather than writing them together, Even Artie Shaw did this, apparently. His first big band arrangement, he had all the parts spread out across the floor, and he had no score to work from. He was just doing the sax part, and then he'd come over here and do the trumpet part. Yeah, so I did that, but and I don't know. It was you listen to the radio, and they talking about composers. I guess it seemed pretty normal.
When you got to Leeds, to the at studying jazz, did they have a composition component?
Yeah, they did actually, and that was quite Interesting. Yeah, there was some interesting, really interesting aspects to that course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good 3 years there.
Were you beginning to think as you toured with Phil and New Orleans All Stars of the city itself? Had you had
Yeah.
some yen for getting here even then?
I mean, I wasn't thinking about it too much because I didn't see how it would happen, you know. But when looking back, it always seems like the moment I first sat down and listened to that 45 was the beginning of a journey that ended up here, maybe whatever it was, 12 years ago. You know, it's funny how I was attracted to that, and then that attracted me to, you know, when I finally got here, maybe 2000, you know, it made perfect sense.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk some about coming to New Orleans and what you've been doing and how you got together with Mr. Lawrence Seaworth over here in just a minute. But next, let's have some more music from you, gentlemen.
What do you want to play, Larry?
How about, see, what do we know?
Play something you know, yeah,
Let's see. Oh,
just for the fun of it.
how about summertime?
That wonderful arrangement of Summertime is coming your way, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't remember the arrangement. I just
Well, improvise. Summertime. George and Ira Gershwin, DuBose Hayward's classic from Porgy and Bess, and as performed on Standardized by James Evans and Lawrence Siebert, ladies and gentlemen. Lads, how about another one before we talk some more here? The phone blues, ladies and gentlemen. The Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble. They're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. More Gershwin for you, ladies and gentlemen, from Lawrence Siebert and James Evans. Summertime and Our Love is here to stay. Both of those available on Standardized. James, you completed your studies at Leeds and you're touring a good bit around Europe. In '98, you moved to London, start working with a lot of really great people there,
You
including...
remember better than I do. Yeah.
You got to be reminded of these things occasionally. There's, including people with pretty strong connections to New Orleans, Sammy Remington among them. And other people there as well who had been here, I think, some. And
Oh, yeah,
had knew
no,
the scene.
yeah. One of the things that happened is I went to Switzerland and we did a residency, and the drummer on that was Emil Martin, who's the son of Barry Martin, who lived for, I don't know, 60-odd years in New Orleans, although he was English. So I met Emil and his brother Ben, and we ended up living together in London. And they had a band, and I was doing, got some gigs. And, was really broke, but I was in London, But, and there was kind of a gap in the middle where I just went back to Wales and actually made a living as well, playing music in North Wales, which is pretty tough, but, So thought, I've got to try London, see what it's like, see if the streets really are paved with gold. Indeed. Yeah, so I did that for a few years, and then and the thing is, through them I met Louise Remington, Sammy's daughter, who and we got married, and in fact we were married when we moved here. We're no longer married, but so that was how that all roundabout,
So was the
it's
notion...
like one thing leads to the next.
Was
I
the
listened to
notion
Kenny
that-
Ball. Next thing I'm living in New Orleans. I don't know.
I said, was that notion beginning to sort of crystallize in your head?
Yeah, as soon as I visited. And that was very impulsive. They just, Ben Martin, who I mentioned, just phoned me up. So I've got a ticket. It's £250, which is really, I wish you could still get them for that price. But, but it's next week, so I just cancelled my gigs and came. And then as soon as I was here, it was everything I wanted in life, And when I had to leave, it seemed like, I didn't want to immediately. But then it took a few years to finally make the move. But
So did you, by that initial visit, had you made some connections here that you were able to call upon when you moved, or was it like coming back here cold when you finally came in 2013?
So when I finally came, my mother-in-law at the time was running the Palm Court. So I, pure nepotism. But I got to.
So you got introduced to that.
Yeah.
scene.
So then I got to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Because all sorts of people from all kinds of scenes in town played at the Palm Court. It was one of the most amazing things about it. I think it was such a mixture of scenes.
Yes.
Within the scene.
Having a gig was more important than what it was.
Well, that's true,
Also.
And, but it's pretty quick then you start meeting people. I met some people on Frenchman Street and then started playing down there and playing on the Natchez. And, it happens so fast here. I see it when people come to town and they come, and and within 2 days they've got like a residency. You know, it just seems to be.
Yeah,
how
so
it
it's a
functions here. Yeah.
beautiful thing. I think people, I say always, if you come with an open mind and an open heart, the community here will embrace you.
Yeah.
Particularly if you keep your mouth shut for the first year you're here.
Yeah, yeah. I should probably still do that more. Yeah.
Or
But,
longer, maybe, in
yeah,
some
yeah,
cases.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, what about, do you remember meeting Mr. Larry Seaberth here? Did you
I-
encounter him at all in your early forays?
We'll be with Gerald.
Gerald.
Yeah,
With,
Gerald
Gerald
French in
French.
the tuxedo. Yeah. So I did a few subs, and then I was in the band for about 3 years, and now I'm sub still on occasion. But Larry's, you've been in that band a long time.
I was in that band before Gerald, when Bob French was
Yeah.
the band leader. Yeah.
So
the
you know,
great George French recently left us.
yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Gerald's dad and Bob's brother, and Papa French's son. So you through meeting all these trad people and then getting in that band, you were really quickly introduced to the real New Orleans trad.
Yeah, you know, in all its kind of what's the word? In all its versions, you know, I mean,
Right.
it means different things to different people. It was one of the first things I became aware of, you know. But and I love them all. I really can honestly say that I love doing the whole gamut, you know, and beyond that even, because that's one of the things about being here is you can play Jello Morton in the morning, you know, and Albert Eiler in the afternoon, and you know, Jello Morton again in the evening, or whatever, you know, rock and roll or something.
Rhythm and
And
blues.
yeah, you know, and I've heard it.
Zydeco,
I've
whatever.
heard it said by a few people that sort of thing is very much not what happens in, say, New York, where you go and you get typecast and
Right.
then that's it.
That's all.
And
all
that's
you're-
the absolute opposite here, and I love that variety. You know, keeps it fresh.
And it allows all these influences to cross pollinate in the various musics too. So you hear some really interesting things develop within a genre, quote unquote, that you might not hear elsewhere because people are bringing all kind of musical experiences to the conversation.
Yeah, you know, it's a sort of wellspring, but it's also a hub. You know, and so there's just this huge. I mean, I would love to know what the proportion of of musicians per capita is in New Orleans, but it must be very atypically high. I mean, it's not really that big a city, and yet everywhere you turn, is musicians you've never seen before, even after 12 years.
Yeah, it's and I would say if you're lucky enough to live here, you know, the rest of your life, you'll always have that experience. It seems to me that it continues. I'm impressed by the younger group of artists that have come to town in their 20s and early 30s.
Yeah, and younger. You know, they're
And,
still. Yeah. I'm really old news at this point.
Who's the old dude
yeah,
now?
yeah.
It's a question we ask a lot these days.
Yeah. Well, I'm right between this kind of veteran and newcomer. You know, I'm just in the hinterland in the middle at the moment.
As a composer, James, you've written all kind of stuff in the traditional form. You've written some things that are more, remind me could be Frank Zappa or someone who would combine modern classical and rock and roll and, you know, all kind of influences. Do you enjoy having that aspect to sort of exercise your creativity playing and writing for utterly different scenario than you make your living mostly doing?
Yeah. I never completely understood why music is shepherded off into little regions where you have a band and it just plays one type, you know, a very tight sort of genre. Because I don't know, I was thinking about this. I feel like I have a very kind of first principles approach to, like, way I look at music. I know approach, but I definitely see it, you know, there's melody and there's harmony and there's rhythm and there's timbre and, you know, dynamics. and really just the possibilities within that are as wide as you need to express your whole emotional world. So, it always seemed odd to me. Is this just a matter of marketing, or do people have a very singular emotional world, or what is it? And I feel like there was a quote from Django. Now, being Django Reinhardt is probably made up, but because he's lost in
They serve.
he's
anyway,
he's lost in time now. But there was this thing where he said, "Oh yes, there's a time of music, time of day for every type of music." Yeah. And I definitely feel that. I sat down. I tried to write a piece for strings and clarinets that was trying to follow sonata form, kind of. Because that's something I wanted to say,
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you take it to any other extreme because you feel different all the time. I do anyway. I don't know. I mean, also, I don't like repeating myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the point. Once I've done something,
Well,
done it. That was it.
You've also led some bands in that London time. You formed some of your own bands.
Yeah, I did have bands.
And
yeah.
I was wondering about Ginger Pig Band, the Ginger Pig Band.
Oh, well, that's not bad. That band still exists, and that's John Richardson
That's
runs
not
that
your-
band. You know John Richardson?
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, so I played with them, and I toured, and we went to Bermuda. And I met Sidney Snow, because he brought him over to Bermuda to do that gig.
How about that?
And a percussionist, Kufaru. Don't know if you ever came across him, but yeah, just like the connection. But he spends maybe a quarter of the year here, so.
Was it Octuple Odyssey?
Yeah,
your band.
that was my vanity project, yeah, where I could actually really arrange as well as have it be a jazz band. So it was a lot. I bit off a lot with that one. But some of it I was really happy with. And there was some, I was very lucky with some of the people who were in that group.
And then the New Orleans Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, that's... it's funny now being here, and people use that name in Europe to denote traditional jazz that isn't trad, because trad became such a dirty word after the trad boom.
Became the equivalent of Dixieland.
Yeah, so it was like, okay, we're going to be a bit more into the revival or maybe classic jazz, but not
Not that.
trad. Yeah, so that was... But that was we did a few gigs with that. Yeah, never made a real recording of it, but weirdly.
Mm-hmm. Well, 2013, you come to New Orleans. What finally pushed the button to get you to move?
I think both. Louise and I both were feeling it at the same moment. Really, that we both wanted to, at least. Well, the first thing was let's go for 6 months, and then by the time you get all the paperwork done, it's like, no way, I'm just going for 6 months. This was because it's, you have to really, it's quite a rigmarole, which, as it probably should be. But, by the time you do that, we've got to stay at least a year, and then you get here, it's like, I just need to stay here. This is ideal. And and the first thing that struck me was, I'm not touring anymore. I don't have to tour. I don't have to spend my whole life on trains and cars, planes and boats, which I never liked. I mean, I always found that very, very nerve-wracking, really. And suddenly I was living on Ursuline Street, and I was walking up to Frenchman or walking to the Palm Court, and it's like, okay, the gig's at 7. Okay, it's like 6:55. I suppose I better think about getting ready, and then you show up, and it starts kind of late, which is fine. Yeah, it's just
You got to
heaven,
adjust your internal clock to New Orleans time.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you arrive here, and you've had a lot of interesting experiences. You've recorded a fair amount since you've been here. Put out, I don't know, 7 or 8 CDs
Of my own, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. There's always other people with projects, so I don't actually. I haven't kept count, but there must
Yeah.
be. dozens.
One of them, what you and Larry have done together. I want to talk to you guys in our next after some more music about how you got together and how you planned what became standardized. Both composers, how you look at tunes maybe as a composer's eye and a player's eye, or how you pick what ended up on the 10 sides on standardized. But before we get to that, let's have some more music.
Now what?
I was thinking, let's do,
This is how it's done.
Yes.
He decides, you just follow?
Yeah, I do what he says.
how about guilty?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
James is a great vocalist as well.
Wow.
This is not on the album, but I like this.
Is it a sin? Is it a crime? Loving you, dear, like I do. If it's a crime, then I'm guilty. Guilty of loving you. Maybe I'm wrong, dreaming of you, dreaming the lonely night through. If it's a crime, then I'm guilty, guilty of dreaming of you. What can I do? What can I say after I've taken the blame? You'll say you're through, you'll go your way. I'll always feel just the same. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, loving you, dear, like I do. If it's a crime, then I'm guilty, guilty of loving you.
What can I do? What can I say after I've taken the blame? You'll say you're through, you'll go your way, and I'll always feel just the same. Oh, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, loving you dear like I do.
Yeah, beautiful. On the vocal, Mr. James Evans, ladies and gentlemen, and the saxophone at the piano, Lawrence Sieber. That one's not on the new record, but maybe this next one will be. One more, if you would, please, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Something we've been able to say pretty often around here lately, ladies and gentlemen. Here's That Rainy Day from Standardized. Another beautiful tune, beautifully played.
That was, I just remembered that was the first tune I ever improvised on. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And that was exactly what I played that time.
That solo stuck with him, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I couldn't improve on that.
Was that in a small local band in your hometown? Or
No, it's in my music teacher's house
at Leeds?
in Wales.
Yeah. Well, James, I mentioned a while ago you had a chance to record. I just want to run through a few of these. Also, I think when I first saw you play was with Smoking Time Jazz Club, and you worked a lot with those folks. Yes. And now you have led a band, James Evans and the Kindred Swindlers.
Yeah.
And the Swindlers have a new record out, a relatively new one.
Well, there's kind of there's an album and 2 EPs worth out there, but the last recording we just it's released online. So and there's video. It was filmed as well, both those last times.
So you can get into the digital realm and check out Swindlers Play Jazz Music.
Yeah.
When did you guys first start talking about doing something together on record?
I think you phoned me up, didn't you?
Yeah, I just called you up and said, hey, come on over and bring your horns.
Yeah.
And he came over and brought his horns. And I had set up a setup in my house because I have an amazing piano, and I appropriated some microphones and some recording equipment. And I said, James, he says, what you want to play? I said, do you know Night and Day? He says, yeah. What key? I said, well, let's do it in C. He says, okay. So I hit record. And that's how this began. We did talk about one song, but other than choosing a song and a key, it's all, the arrangements are as spontaneous as the performance. I mean, the performance is spontaneous, and that's the whole beauty of this relationship with James, because I know that no matter what I do, rhythmically, harmonically, or melodically, he's not going to be going, what's he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing? What's that? Because I'm sure he's thinking the same thing. Oh, here's somebody that who can accompany me without having to be strict to the harmonic language or even the form. Even what we've done today is probably completely different from the recording we did.
Yeah, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
Well, as we said, we couldn't do it the same if we wanted to.
Right.
So there's that.
Right. Yeah.
In thinking about the tunes, was it just a matter of trying to pick some? Did you get the idea originally, Larry, of all standards, or?
Yes, I did, because I didn't want to have my head buried in the music.
Yeah, right.
And
be able to listen and
it's songs that I'm extremely familiar with, so I can trust the impromptu pathway in the song.
Right.
You may have noticed that we can break out of the form of the song. We can definitely break out of the harmonic structure of the song, and of course James can move very far away from the melody, and we're still in sync. And that's something that is not. We used to explore that a lot, back in the early days of my long tenure here in New Orleans, playing with other musicians long before James got here, is that it was about listening. It wasn't about rehearsing and meticulously editing and overdubbing and talking about every detail of the music. It was about being in the moment and being in the moment of the music. I don't know if that makes sense to you all, but
Well, I mean, I always think it's nice when you know the material really well.
Right, right.
Then you can really let go and just let your unconscious just come up with stuff, and then that's the most fun for me. Trying to remember stuff is just kind of stressful for me personally.
Right.
But you know, we have to do it. But this situation, it's totally lizard brain. It's just like go,
Right.
and then you react.
Record.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's pretty good.
Yeah, because
Let's do it again, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause, well, that's, you know, I like the feeling of doing, like, oh, what did I do? I don't even know what I just did. And that's, when I know what I'm doing, I actually generally pretty much hate it. Oh, yeah, well, it was, yeah, luckily, like I say, it was a jazz exam, so I didn't, right, preparation wasn't the biggest part.
That's a what do they call that? A misnomer?
Jazz exam.
Jazz
yeah.
exam, yeah.
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 I think you know, having that structure and familiarity too is a great spark to creativity. Just having something to bounce off of in terms of the harmony and melody where you start.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's so much interplay between us. You know, he'll do something that's like, okay, I'm going with that. I hear that. I'm going to compliment that.
Yeah, well,
Hopefully.
Larry's an arch accompanist in that sense. Yeah, yeah. If I'm soloing, he will follow me anywhere. Yeah,
Well, you know,
even if it's a really bad idea.
well, as it's been said, just repeat the bad idea again, and it'll become,
Yeah, man.
you know.
But one of the tunes you guys do, I've always really liked is the unofficial pandemic theme, "Alone Together." It's a really beautiful version of that. And let me just say, let everybody know, night and day, our love is here to stay, days of wine and roses, there is no greater love. Summertime, what is this thing called love? Alone together, try to remember from the Fantastics. On a clear day, and here's that rainy day. Really great collection of tunes that take you a lot of different directions across the course of the 10 tunes.
You know, I'm a big fan of Keith Jarrett, and his standards recordings are of the same ilk in that you don't have to think, or I should say it this way, you can really expand upon the framework because of the familiarity with the melody.
Right.
You know, because they can go anywhere. And you know, James, I got to say, is you know, I've played with a lot of great musicians here for the last 50 years, and there's something so unique about James in that he has brought the whole history of jazz into his playing. And within one song, you can hear everything from, like he said, who was it? And then Albert Eiler.
No, Jelly Roll Morton.
Jelly Roll
Yeah,
Morton
yeah.
and Albert Eiler, yeah. And, you know, it's the same for me. And
Well, they seem very connected to me.
me too, you
Yeah,
know. And I
yeah.
got to say, my upbringing is a little different than James's because I was always kind of like a modern, you know, proponent, and I still am. But then I started playing with Don Vappy and then Gerald French, and started really like, because when I started playing with Don Vappy, all those jazz songs sounded exactly alike to me, you know. And it took me years of understanding the idiosyncrasies and the content and what and something I wanted to say earlier in your conversation with Fred is that there are musicians who are incredible at certain idioms. You know, there are those musicians who are you know, they can play Jelly Roll Morton, they can play Art Tatum, they can, but to have somebody that is not restricted, you know, that is just appreciative of kind of what James was saying about just music in general. It's all somewhat connected, and you know, as your skill set or as your listening set expands, so does your vocabulary of ideas. And it doesn't matter if it came from Britney Spears or Count Basie, you know.
Well, I almost systematically, I remember thinking that at college, it's like, if I want to create music that is most perfectly tailored to my emotional needs, if you like, not my emotional needs, but you know what I mean, then I should draw from the widest possible array, spectrum of music that I could, and because there's bound to be, even if I don't like something, there's bound to be one thing that will be helpful to me in forging my own language that I need to be me.
You know,
when I play.
one thing that's a bit unfortunate, especially in the jazz world, it's that you get kind of dissed if you become successful. You know, I mean,
Can't be any good. He sold a lot of records.
I mean, look, Kenny G has sold a lot of records, and you know, I went and heard Chris Botti, and you know, there were some really wonderful moments in his performance, and you know, but he kind of gets, you know, the more successful you get, the more criticism you get, especially in the jazz world, you know. But hey, some people are laughing all the way to the bank.
Well, I've cleverly avoided that whole situation.
Well, that's because you're a true artist.
Well, you guys successfully reinvigorated these 10 tunes. I think we have time for 2 more, if you give them to us.
Oh, okay. First off, I want to thank you all for staying with us. We lost a lot of the audience. I did, you know, I'm going to confess, I thought we were just doing 3 of us doing a radio podcast. You know, it didn't. So I bought 3 CDs. If anybody wants to, you know, contribute to the cause, so that James and I can make our next CD. It's a dying thing, the CD. You know, even though LPs are kind of making a resurgence, everything now is in the cloud, and I'm glad we're not wearing goggles yet. So. Exactly. It won't be long. And there's a wonderful movie called The Congress that is exactly about that. Have you seen that movie?
That's a great movie.
Yeah. Robin Wright, you know.
Well, it's based on a very good book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Futurological Congress.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's where the Congress.
Lem. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just in a nutshell, it's about a woman who's an actress, and she's kind of a diva and kind of past her prime, and she gets a contract to be digitized. But the thing is she can't act for 20 years, and you know, because she's going to be young and in a digital and have a digital presence. So when 20 years are up, she thinks she can go back to acting, but everybody's living with goggles on, and everybody's has a digital. What do you call that? When you have a digital identity. Yeah, everybody is an avatar, living in a digital realm. So I haven't bought my digital real estate yet, but I know people that actually have.
You do?
Yeah.
Meet me after today's, Stan. I've got something for you.
Yeah, I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, James Evans, Lawrence Sieber. More good music coming up. Take us out, guys.
Did you do that waltz yet?
Which one was that? That's your tune?
No, the one.
Try to remember.
Try to remember.
The ironically titled.
Yeah, he even has the music. Like, he has to read the music.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. The late Jerry Orbach's big number from what was once the longest running show on Broadway, The Fantastics, Try to Remember. Beautiful work at the piano from Lawrence Sievert, ladies and gentlemen. Clarinet and saxophone, James Evans. The new CD is standardized, and you can hear this, what we heard today, and expect more because they'll be playing at Snug Harbor Sunday night, a couple of shows, 7:30, 9:30. Highly recommended. Check that out. And thanks very much for being with us here today. Hope to see you back
Thank
at
you,
our
Fred.
October 10th Talkin Jazz, which will take place at 419 Decatur Street, the visitor center for the New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park there at 419 Decatur. Thanks for being here today.